it doesn't have a name, but you might call it the Need Fire of Borrowdale, because it's about need fires, which is a very ancient tradition in honour of Baal, the pagan god of fire, from the term Beltane, the festival of Beltane comes from. So the story goes that there was a shepherd in Borrowdale who had a large flock and a farmyard and a wife and 3 children. And one day he was in the spring, early spring, he was out tending to his flock, and he noticed a few of the animals looked a bit unwell, and that worried him. And the next day and the day after that, more and more seemed to be getting sick, and he was concerned for the whole flock. So in a panic, he went to see a wise woman who lived in the village, and she gave him very specific instructions about what to do. And so he went home to carry these instructions out. And the first thing that he had to do was extinguish the fire in his home, the hearth. And that was quite a big deal, because as far as he knew, that had been going his entire life, and maybe 100 years. They never extinguished the fire in the hearth. It was for warmth, but it was also where they cooked, and sometimes it would just be embers, sometimes it'd be roaring, but it never really went out. But he had to extinguish it completely, every ember, every spark, completely out. And then he went to the wood and tore a bunch of green branches from the trees. And it was important that they were torn rather than cut. And he made a pile of them in the farmyard. And then he gathered his flock down to the farmyard and then had to start a fire with friction. So you get a plank of wood and a staff and a rope, and you spin the staff and create a flame from friction, which is one of the oldest original ways of starting a fire. And once that flame was going, then he set that to the green branches and created a fire that was obviously horrendously smoky, because green wood doesn't burn very well. And in all that smoke that filled the farmyard, he had to process all of his animals through the smoke. And obviously they didn't want to, but he pushed them all through in order of seniority, so from the youngest lamb up to the very oldest. And they all passed through the smoke, and everything that he had done had been in accordance with the instructions of the wise woman. And he was about to extinguish the fire, and he suddenly had a thought that his wife and children had recently been ill as well. And so, on the spur of the moment, he called them out of the house, and he said, "Walk through the smoke." And the wife said, "Oh, it's not good for the children." He said, pleaded with her, said, "Please do it." So his wife went through the smoke, was coughing, spluttering. The children went through, and they were coughing, spluttering. But all that being done, then he extinguished the fire, and his mind was at rest, and he went about his farming. And in the days that followed, all his flock recovered and seemed in good health. And for the rest of their days, his wife and children were never ill again. But the following winter, the farmer, having not thought to himself walk through the smoke, he became ill and died. And that is the story of the Need Fire. And that process of setting the fire and walking through the smoke was something practiced in Cumbria, in Scotland, throughout Northern Europe for thousands of years, presumably, all the way up until the mid-1800s. There's records of it being done in the 1850s even. So yeah, whether it worked or not.
And how do you spell need?
N-E-E-D, yeah.
N-E-E-D.
I don't know why that's the term, but it's part of a sort of, I think in some places they do it every year.
Yes.
As a Beltane kind of thing.
Yeah. Almost like a beating the bounds, important to do it every year. And
then other places would just be done on sort of case by case, I guess, need basis. But the thing about extinguishing the fire, so they would do it for a whole community. So go around every house and completely extinguish the fires in the house, and then relight it from this green fire that they'd created. And yeah, it was specifically for sick animals.
Yeah.
But then in this book that I kind of nicked that from, sometime in the 1800s there was some tale of some farmer just said to his wife, "Oh, you go through it as well," Yeah. And then she wasn't ill. But it definitely, was something that people did. And there was a sort of thought that there might be something to it in the sense that it's kind of like if they had some maggots or something, you could probably smoke. You mean smoke would probably do something to some kind of sicknesses.
Happened.
Yeah. So that's probably where the origins of it come from. But there's all sorts of different versions of it about how it needs to be done. So in Scotland, it was like, you needed 9 men to do it, and in somewhere in Estonia or something, it was like it had to be 2 naked men in the forest had to start the fire, and then in Serbia it was like, no, it needed to be 2 children, a boy and a girl needed to start the fire, all these different superstitions and things. But I thought it sounds quite dramatic for setting these fires. Because the thing about, like that not the fire never going out would have been a real thing. That would just always be smouldering from one day to the next, like forever.
And so to take the step of extinguishing your
and
fire,
for all the village to do it as well.
it's a scary moment.
Yeah, because people didn't start fires; they would just go and get it from somewhere else.
Yeah.
Like even a couple of 100 years ago, like before people had matches or anything like that, it was just easier rather than starting your own fire and getting some flints. They just go around their neighbour's house and just be like, I'm just going to light,
Get some embers.
Get some embers or something. So you just borrow fire from from whoever it was.
Kind of like a sourdough, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Goes...
Which is very different to how we think about it. You start a fire and they go that, and then you're done with it and you stop it. But it's almost
a private fire.
Yeah. Whereas it being like all fires are sort of one fire, that idea that's like, I'm taking a piece of it and I'm going to put it in my hearth, but it's basically the same flame that came from yours.
I don't own it, and somebody's welcome to have some of this fire.
Yeah, it's all one fire, just burning in different places. It's quite nice.
Yeah, collective fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, mother fire, but then all the children fires just go
everywhere.
on and on and on.
Yeah.
Fantastic.